I'm 35 now, and when I think about the first time, it doesn't feel like a scandal or a crime. It feels like a room I accidentally wandered into because I heard music behind the door. I didn't know the steps or the name of the song. I only knew from the first notes that it was for me. I was 12. It was a Saturday, the kind of long, open day that feels like a second summer crammed into the middle of the school year. My parents had gone to the grocery store together, some peace treaty after a week of clipped voices and cabinet doors shut just a little too hard. The house was quiet in that way that makes you hear clocks. The kitchen one, the one with the faded rooster, ticked loud enough to sound like a dare. I should say, I didn't plan it. There wasn't a heist movie montage. There was a boy who'd spent the last year feeling like everyone else had been handed secret instructions while he was still trying to figure out which side of the paper was up. In class, I parroted answers. In the hallways, I kept my head down and learned how to move with the tide so I wouldn't be noticed. But in my head there was a small, stubborn part of me that wanted to know what it felt like to be true in a way I didn't have words for. I didn't even have a question yet, just a hunger. I wandered upstairs with a book under my arm, the prop of a good kid. I told myself I was going to read in my parents' room, because the sun pooled on their carpet around mid-morning and made a warm square that was nicer than my own bed. I believed the lie just enough to turn the doorknob. My mother's side of the room had a low dresser where a bottle of perfume sat next to a hairbrush. The perfume had a cracked gold label and smelled like powdered flowers and something faintly green, like a breeze through a screen door. I sprayed it once. The mist hung in the light, a delicate constellation, then fell around me as if I'd been invited to stand inside a different weather. The closet was half a step away. I told myself I was only going to look as if it were a museum. Like most museum rules, it lasted until I met the one thing I didn't want to only look at. My mother kept her dresses in a neat line, organized by season and then by color, the way she did everything. I ran my finger along the hangers and listened to them click, plastic against metal, like beads on a string. I stopped at a blue dress that felt cool even before I touched it. When I slid the hanger out, the fabric moved like it already knew how to fall. I remember thinking ridiculous things. Will it be heavy? Will it feel like a costume? Will it hurt? I took it to the bed and laid it down with the reverence of a kid placing a toy car back into its box exactly the way it came. I checked the driveway through the blinds. No car. No one turning the corner. The rooster clock downstairs said I had time, and something in me said I'd never have enough. The first time you put on a thing that changes you, it teaches you everything and nothing at once. I learned practical things. How the zipper hid at the side, how to step in and pull the fabric up without twisting it, how to lift my arms and let the dress settle where it wanted to sit. I learned that it didn't feel like a joke or a dare. It felt like water after a run, like relief. The straps brushed my shoulders and the hem slid against my knees. The air felt different against my skin, not cooler or warmer, just aware. I wasn't trying to be someone else. I was trying to finally be the person who could breathe. I looked into the mirror above the dresser, and I recognized and didn't. There was my face, pale with the nervous heat of doing something forbidden, hair doing its best impression of a field after wind. But the lines of me were altered, softened in places I had only ever imagined them softer. It wasn't magic. It wasn't perfect. The dress fit my mother better than me. It gaped a little at the chest, and the waist sat higher than it should have. None of that mattered. I stood up straighter, not to act like anything, but because my body wanted to meet the way the fabric waited for me to. I don't know how long I stood there, except that the rooster clock kept doing its job, and I kept ignoring it. I touched the skirt like it might take offense at being touched too roughly, and I laughed at myself for apologizing to cloth. I remember the texture more than the color. The way the weave caught on the fine lines of my fingertips, the way the lining ran smooth under the shell, the whisper sound it made when I turned side to side. It wasn't a costume. It was a language, and I knew enough to understand the greetings. At some point the fear arrived, a courteous guest who'd been waiting to be introduced. It came when I thought of hangers clacking again, of the space on the rod where the blue belonged. It came when I thought of the driveway, when I pictured my father's boots hitting the foyer tile, my mother's keys rasping in the bowl. The fear didn't argue with the joy. It just stood in the corner and cleared its throat. I slipped the dress off and pressed the hanger against my chest for a second, like I could take something with me that way. I didn't want to go back to regular clothes. It felt like walking away from a voice I'd finally heard clearly. I slid the blue into its place and smoothed it like a peace offering. Then I closed the closet, sprayed the perfume again to cover any clumsy fingerprints I might have left in the air, and lay down on the carpet where the sun made a gold square. I tried to read. The words ran together and split apart. I watched dust float in the light and felt the new thing in me settling, like a snowfall deciding where to rest. I could have left it at that. I could have told myself it was a one-time curiosity, a misstep, a chapter one didn't need to dwell on. The trouble is, once you've found the room where the music lives, you keep hearing it everywhere. In the swish of a teacher's skirt down the hall. In the smooth flip of a magazine page showing a dress that belonged to no one I knew and somehow belonged to me. In the clink of the rooster clock, ticking toward a day when the house would be empty again. The second time happened faster, with less ceremony. After school on a Wednesday, my parents both had late shifts. I didn't even bother pretending with a book. I went straight upstairs, heart in my throat like I'd swallowed a bell. I opened the closet and didn't think. I picked something else, a cream blouse with small buttons like pearls, a skirt the color of storm clouds. I was clumsier. I fumbled the buttons, got the row wrong and had to start again, laughed at my own shaking hands. I tucked the blouse into the skirt the way I'd seen my mother do in the hallway mirror. I stood in front of that same mirror and watched a kid surface, not the boy who couldn't catch a ball in gym without flinching, not the kid who mumbled his name at roll call. Someone else, still me, felt possible. That night I learned about hiding. I learned how to fold things exactly, so they'd look untouched. I learned where shadows lived in a room, where a hem could disappear behind another hem. I learned how to move quietly in clothes that were meant to be seen and heard. And I learned, this is the part that mattered, that removing the clothes didn't remove the feeling. I went to bed in pajamas with rockets on them, trying not to grin at nothing, trying not to ruin it by poking at it with questions I wasn't ready to answer. It didn't take long for my experiments to outgrow borrowed minutes. Curiosity ripened into ritual, and ritual wants tools. I started small. A pair of tights, purchased with chore money at the pharmacy under the excuse of Halloween. A drugstore clear lip balm that said it was sheer and natural and felt like a kept promise. I had a shoebox under my bed and then a shoebox inside the shoebox, the inner one lined with tissue, like a secret had earned a proper bed. I taught myself patience. I waited for laundry days to look at labels and learn sizes without appearing to. I watched my mother put on earrings and understood, with a clarity far beyond my years, that beauty was a series of tiny choices practiced until they looked effortless. There's a temptation, telling this now, to make myself sound wise in retrospect, to claim I knew exactly what I was doing and why. I didn't. I only knew that the days I could be near the things that softened me were better than the days I couldn't, and that the world felt less like a place to survive, and more like a place that might welcome me if I dressed the part. I wasn't pretending to be my mother. I wasn't pretending to be anyone. I was trying to explore the shape of a wanting I didn't know how to name. The words I needed, gender, identity, and transition, were still locked away somewhere I wouldn't find for years. All I had was the music and my willingness to listen. The first close call came with all the clumsiness of real life. Saturday again. My parents were home. I had been careful for weeks, maybe too careful, which is another way of saying I had grown bold. I'd worn a soft camisole under my t-shirt, a thing no one should have seen, a private token I thought would carry me through the day. It was laundry time, baskets thumping, washer drumming in the garage. My mother called from the hallway. "Did you sort your clothes?" I said yes, too fast. She opened my door without knocking, as mothers do when the known world hasn't taught them why not to. I stood there, halfway through putting socks into a pile, and felt the wash of heat that starts at the chest and runs like spilled paint everywhere at once. The camisole neckline peaked just past the collar of my t-shirt. It could have been nothing. To me, it was a sign in neon. "What's that?" she asked, puzzled, not yet harsh. She stepped closer. I did the dumbest thing possible. I reached up to adjust my shirt, telegraphing my panic like a flag. She saw the edge of lace and went still in a way that warned of a storm more effectively than shouting. "Is that mine?" "It's... I found it," I said, as if that explained anything at all. "Take it off," she said, voice low and flat, the way people talk when they want to freeze time long enough to undo it. I did. My face burned. I wanted to explain without knowing what I could claim. I wanted to ask for something I couldn't name and that I suspected she didn't have. She took the camisole like it was a fragile thing and left the room. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't kind. She was a person who had just found a corner of her world bent at a strange angle and needed to go be alone with it.
We didn't talk about it that day.
We didn't talk about most of the things that mattered. Silence is a family skill, passed down like an heirloom. I went for a walk and looked at people's windows and wondered who else was living in a house where words weren't wide enough. That should have frightened me away. It didn't. If anything, it made the need more precise. The next time I dressed, I checked the door twice and the driveway 3 times. I was careful with the line between reverence and shame. I let myself like what I liked, and I tried not to punish myself for it. And when I caught my reflection in the mirror and saw how the blouse fell or how a skirt asked me to stand, I felt steadier than I had any right to at 12. On the last night of that first season, the season of discovery, I made myself a promise, though I didn't say it out loud in case the rooster clock could hear. I promised that I wouldn't pretend this was nothing. I wouldn't shove it into a corner of my life and pile old sweaters on top. I didn't know what it meant, and I didn't know where it would lead, and I didn't know how it would hurt. I only knew that something tender and true had woken up in me, and I wanted to be the kind of person who didn't roll over and go back to sleep. If I could send a letter to that kid, I wouldn't tell them to be careful, though I wish I could save them from the ways caution becomes a cage. I would tell them to be kind. To themselves first, because no one had modeled how. I would tell them that what felt like stealing was really borrowing, not fabric, but a kind of courage. I would tell them that a day would come when the music they heard alone in a quiet room would play out loud, and they would dance not as an apology or a plea, but as a person who finally knows their own name. Back then, I didn't know any of that. I only knew the weight of a hanger in my hand, the drift of perfume in sunlit dust, the simple miracle of fabric against skin. I knew that the house had places where the air felt different, and that if I moved carefully enough, I could walk through them and come out more myself. I knew the rooster clock kept ticking, indifferent, and that I was learning, slowly, how to live in time that was mine. That was the beginning. Not a blaze of clarity, not a pronouncement, just a quiet yes whispered into a room that understood. I didn't plan it. I didn't have a map. I had a feeling, a blue dress, and a small boy's patience. And I had the sense, even then, that once a door opens like that, it doesn't close again. Not really. Not ever. Do you want to see what happens next? Subscribe and become part of our story. New episodes every week. Turn on the bell so you never miss what's coming next.